I'm Jamie Ray, and welcome to Digital Photo Art. This semester, I'm teaching animation, digital photo art, and advanced photo and studio art. My background includes a bachelor's degree in art education and painting from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, as well as getting a master's in interdisciplinary art from Columbia College in Chicago and in teacher leadership from Elmhurst College. In my spare time, I enjoy working on illustrations, which include working with watercolors and colored pencils, sewing, as well as volunteering, riding motorcycles with my husband, and enjoying our dog, Missy. This semester, my plan is 4 objectives or goals. The first one would be ideation. Students will learn how to stage the creative process and to learn to work with the advice given by peers and teachers through critiques. This has application to real-life skills in that students will understand how to develop a product or project and to do so incorporating feedback. Craft technique and aesthetics. Students will learn techniques, craftsmanship, and what it means to complete something well. This has application to real-life skills in that students will learn what steps are necessary to complete something that can be presented and shared as a finished product. Visual communication. Students will learn how to view art, discuss art, interpret art, and produce art with meaningful content. This applies to real-life skills in an age when visual images have great prominence through television, the internet, and other forms of media. And finally, self and cultural awareness. Students will see how art has cultural worth and value as they study examples from past and contemporary cultures in relation to class projects. Students will be encouraged to see how continued involvement in the visual arts to any extent will bring value to their own lives and continued experiences. If you go to our home page on Canvas, and the first page is going to bring you to some icons that might be helpful. One of the things that I wanted to point out was if any students need me Tuesdays through Fridays from 7:45 to 8:45, they can click on this Zoom icon. And then the other thing I'd like to go through is if you click on the grading syllabus icon, what I would like to point out is the basics for the class. Students will learn the fundamentals of photography by exploring both the technical and artistic aspects of the medium, including basic camera operation, composition, digital enhancement, and manipulation using primarily Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. For those students that cannot access Adobe remotely, they will be using a program called Photopea, which is very similar to Adobe Photoshop, and to replace Adobe Illustrator, we're going to use a program called Gravit. Focus will be on technical and aesthetic growth along with the creative process of making imagery. This class will introduce students to the principles of contemporary media. I have asked students to look around for a camera to see if they can borrow relatives or friends and neighbors. What I ideally am looking for in their camera is that it has adjustable focus and exposure, which allows them to control both the aperture, the A and AV settings, and the shutter speed, the S or TV settings. Students can borrow a camera from LT. If your son or daughter is still in need of a camera, please have them email and contact me as soon as possible. The other thing I wanted to point out was how I'm going to grade this semester. So the semester coursework is going to include projects, photography assignments and images, chapter quizzes, photo exercises, and reflections and critiques. I'm going to break down the coursework into 2 categories: summative, which will be graded, and formative, which will be ungraded. Now let's go back and take a look at some of the artwork samples that they are going to hopefully create this semester. So for our very first assignment, I've had students take pictures of themselves. And using Photoshop or Photopea, students are retracing or drawing over their photographs using the paintbrush. And then we're going to add color, watercolors, and add some visual texture. Along the way, students are going to learn the art vocabulary, which are called the art elements and art principles. In order to help them learn the vocabulary, students are going to go on a scavenger hunt looking for these images on the internet. I've also included slow film speed, shutter speeds, apertures to include with their scavenger hunt. Once we start looking at cameras, students will become more familiar with film speed, shutter speed, and aperture, and how each of those varying functions can change the look of their photographs. To help them learn the elements and principles, students are going to be asked to photograph their own elements and principles. It is then from this photo assignment that students are going to choose their most favorite. Students will also look and critique artwork, both theirs and famous artworks. From that elements and principles photo shoot, students are going to choose their most favorite, and then we're going to create a kaleidoscope design. I like to give students more of a chance to practice their cutting and pasting skills. So I've given each student an historical painting, and they have to include, I think it's 7 to 10 objects from the internet into the painting. So the original from Magritte is on the left, and on the right you can see the student's finished product. The other thing that I'm hoping is that students learn how to blend objects into the background, maybe changing their colors, hue, saturation, and lightness and darkness. We will explore portraits and do an Andy Warhol pop art assignment. Once we get into Illustrator, I usually have students practice I've done fish, I've done teddy bears, just to get and become more familiar with the pen tool and how to fill in shapes, how to use transparencies. Usually in the fall, I'll do a Day of the Dead project, again using student self-portrait pictures. This is a combination of using both Illustrator and Photoshop. Here's an example. Once we practice with Illustrator, then I try to get students to challenge themselves, either doing, I've done fruits, vegetables, desserts. Again, just helping them break up photographs into different shapes. Illustrator, we've also done portraits. Along the way, I'm going to also have students practice the different shutter speeds. What I like them to do is practice slow and fast shutter speeds. This one here on the left is called panning, where you follow the object. Ideally, the object should be in focus. Fast shutter speed is going to create water to be more frozen. I show them how to create a ghost using a longer shutter speed. Same thing here, where you can use cell phones to create lights. That's all dealing with slower shutter speeds. From these exercises, students then create their own pictures outside of the environment. So this is an example of a slow shutter speed. And here's another example of a slow shutter speed. So getting the students to hopefully take the camera off of P for program mode or automatic and use more of the functions that the camera has to offer. We'll explore 20 same color during the semester and putting everything together in a grid. I've done a color swap where students are asked to take pictures of figures, and then they will cut and paste the figures into a space and hands color according to some type of color scheme. We'll also explore surrealism, whether that be black, white, and gray, or maybe adding a little bit of color. In the end, students should have a good portfolio of images that they can take with them. And hopefully they've learned not only how to use their camera, but also how to manipulate their photographs and to add things to make lots of artistic projects. I'm really looking forward to a wonderful semester. If at any time you have any questions or concerns, please email me.